Well, hi everybody. Welcome to class tonight, and those of you online, hello and welcome. So we're going through this text called Transforming Problems into Happiness, and it's based on a text by Langri Tangpa called 8 Verses for Training the Mind. So before we actually get into that text, let's do what we normally do, which is to take refuge and generate a mind of enlightenment. So this means you just got to get comfortable in your seat. Just check that your back is straight and your shoulders are relaxed. And place your hands wherever you like. And you can keep your eyes open, completely closed, or sort of half open. And now just let your body breathe itself. And then imagine that Shakyamuni Buddha, his spiritual sons, the Bodhisattvas, and the deities and Dharma protectors appear in the space in front of you. And surrounding you are all sentient beings. Acknowledge what you have in common with the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, and acknowledge what you have in common with sentient beings. You're wishing to put an end to your own suffering and the suffering of others, and to develop all the good qualities of yourself and others. Decide to lead all these beings who surround you in the safe direction of refuge. Then join me in saying, I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Now, from the heart of each enlightened being, think that lights and nectars pour forth, and these lights and nectars wash over you and over all the people surrounding you. And whatever hinders or obstructs a pure going for refuge, this is washed away. In its place, a great confidence in the 3 rare sublime ones, and the ability to become enlightened for the benefit of others. Recollecting all the people who surround you, say, may all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is without suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. From the heart of each enlightened being above you, rays of lights and nectars pour forth. Whatever is an obstacle or hindrance to these 4 boundless thoughts is washed away. And your mind is one in nature with these 4 boundless thoughts. Continuum of your mental consciousness is suffused with immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable joy, and immeasurable equanimity. And now you're in a really good position to gather the two accumulations of merit and wisdom to become enlightened. And so you say, reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since the beginning of this time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own and others' merits to the great enlightenment. In recollecting how all phenomena exist dependently and are therefore empty of any intrinsic nature, transform the body, your own body, into a pure land with a central mountain, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. And decide to offer this to the Buddhas as a place where you can teach all beings to become enlightened. And join me in saying, this ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Mary, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. This offering of ours has been accepted by the Buddha, and he smiles at us with delight. We look up into his eyes. You see the kindness, the acceptance and the wisdom. And we ask the Buddha to help us stop all wrong thoughts, from disrespect to a teacher to the clinging to ego. To let all the right thoughts develop, from respect for our teacher up to the sense of selflessness. We ask him to please help us remove all obstacles, whether they be inner, outer, or secret. And we ask the Buddha, our Guru, to bless us and all beings like us to understand each stage of the path. And as we come to the development of bodhicitta, to help us transform the mind into that entity. In response to this wish of ours, an emanation of the Buddha leaves his heart, moves through space and comes to abide above the crown of your head. So facing in the same direction you are, this emanation of the Buddha descends, enters the crown of your head, goes down into your chest, and rests just above your heart. And now the radiance of this emanation begins to expand, filling your body and mind with light. And the light goes out through the pores of your skin, begins to fill the 10 directions of space. And wherever sentient beings abide, they always abide within space. Well, they're transformed by this light into the fully awakened state. It feels as if you've accomplished something wonderful. And then from the furthest reaches of space, the light begins to withdraw. It re-enters your heart. And you find that your body is breathing itself. You are aware of your bottom on the seat, and you're aware of sounds. and breathing normally and naturally, you acknowledge this meditation has been one of imagination that has imprinted the mind. And this imprint will act as a condition for your enlightenment. The thing now that by depending upon an authentic teacher and moving through the different stages of the path and putting the teachings into practice, you will bring about enlightenment for yourself and for all sentient beings. And again, just to affirm here, this is what I want to do. And then breathe in deeply through your nostrils and exhale through your mouth. And in your own time, let your eyes flutter open and move your body in whichever way you'd like to, so that you feel quite comfortable again and with your eyes are awake. Okay, so let's have a look. So this is our sixth class, and in the previous 5 classes we looked at the preliminary practices, and within those preliminary practices there's material on the different teachers of the lineage of thought transformation and the different texts that we talked about. So this text called 8 Verses of Thought Transformation comes from Geshe Langri Tangpa, who was born in the 11th century. And he was seen, even in his own time, as an emanation of Buddha Amitabha. And he was a very humble person who had a very grim-looking face. He never, it was very, very rare for him to ever smile. In fact, his assistant said to him, yeah, you'd have a much better relationship with all the people that came here if you smiled a little bit more. And he said, like, how can I smile when the sufferings of samsara are so obvious to me? His face was sort of quite sad looking, black, grim looking. In fact, they used to call him old grim face.
Old stony face.
Grim face, stony face, and so forth. In fact, there's an interesting story about when he was one time up in retreat in a cave, and the cave looked down across a frozen lake. And there was a trader going across the lake, and this trader was a trader in pottery, and he had all these pots, you know. So he's going across the lake, but he's slipping, and every time he slips, the pots break. And every time he falls over, he gets upset. And just as we might say, ah, Jesus, you know, so he'd say, grim face. Was he knew up there, as the Geshe Langri Tangpa was sitting up in the cave, he knew that someone could see him. And he said, this is one of the few times Geshe Langri Tangpa smiled. There are other emanations of what you might call reincarnations when Langri Tangpa passed away. So one of them is Kedrib J, who's Lama Tsongkhapa's spiritual son. If you look up there, you go on the right, that's Kedrib J. So that's a reincarnation of Geshe Langri Tangpa. Geshe Langri Tangpa was also seen as the first and second Panchen Lamas were also reincarnations of Geshe Langri Tangpa. And in our lifetime, Trajang Rinpoche, one of the major teachers of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So he was also said, no, okay, this fellow is a reincarnation of Geshe Langri Tangpa. Then we looked at the different things that actually sort of hinder the development of bodhicitta, in fact, of any stage of the spiritual path. And these are what they call the 8 worldly concerns. So this means that basically when we're concerned with gain and loss, disrepute and fame, blame and praise, and pleasure and pain. And our major concerns are those. It really sort of corrupts practice. Practice can't be pure. And like it always hinders an authentic practice. This practice it seems to be always done in just for this life, for these phenomena of this life. Right? We know that to develop this mind of enlightenment and to actually train in these practices of thought transformation, equanimity is necessary. And so far we've looked at verses 1 to 5, and tonight we'll be looking at verse 6. So I brought up some of these books, or at least one of them, to read some of the material for it. All of these books here are commentaries on 8 verses of thought transformation. In fact, this big book there called Mind Training, there's a number of commentaries on it. And in my own material here, I've taken snippets out of it. Okay, so today, first of all, like a brief review of the first 5 verses. So I'll do that just now, just so that we know where we're up to. So I hope you remember, so the first 2 verses, this is quite simple. The first verse is cherishing others. That's its main focus, right? Learning to cherish others. And then the second verse is about you enhance this cherishing love, the cherishing of others. The third verse, which I'd like us, I should probably just read it out, says here, vigilant, the moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. So the major portion of this text is about watching the mind and driving out the afflictions as soon as they arise. So we've got a cherishing others, and enhancing that cherishing love, knowing that what will really hinder that is our own disturbing emotions. So we need to drive them out. Then verse 4, which is, whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed with violent negative actions and suffering, I shall hold such rare ones dear as if I had found a precious treasure. So here, this is primarily about extending and deepening our compassion. And then verse 5, when out of envy, others mistreat me with abuse, insults, or the like, I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others. The here extending and deepening love. So it's cherishing, driving out the afflictions, extending and deepening compassion, extending and deepening love. Of course, there's much more we could say about these. And in fact, I'll read you. So we're up to the 6th verse. So this is a book called 8 Verses for Training the Mind. It was one of the books I had up on that screen. And it's from Geshe Sonam Rinchen and his wife, Ruth Sonam. And here he says, so really verse 5, right? When out of envy, others mistreat with abuse, insults, or like, I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others. And then we have verse 6 today. So he says the 5th and 6th verses describe the practice of exchanging self and others. In the 5th verse, what we did last week, the situation is described where someone harms us maliciously. Instead of retaliating, we offer all gain to the other and accept defeat. Now tonight, in the 6th verse, someone we have helped responds with ingratitude. And we have to accept that response, looking upon that person as our teacher. And in both of these cases, we are practicing the exchange of self and others by putting the other first.
Like parents and teenagers.
Yes. So we're looking at voluntarily again enduring suffering, just like last week. So of course it must be associated with the practice of patience and the perfection of patience. So we're challenging the natural impatience that arises when these sort of things happen and our sort of natural response of anger to it. Yeah, so again, from last week, when out of envy, others mistreat me with abuse, insults, and the like, and I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others. So you can see there we have to be patient with what's going on and challenge our anger, our impatience.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Sure, Ben.
The verse you just went from last week, it says, give the victory to others.
Mm.
Are those others the ones, like, is this in general to others, or is it to those people who are harming you and doing whatever?
Specifically to those people the verse is related to, but then generally it's all who do harm to us, whether it's out of envy, malice, whatever. And this verse 5, it's we talked about it last week. Sometimes when you become you take up this way of life, this Buddhist path, you'll find often you sort of so you won't be the same as you used to be. And so what will happen is your friends are going to notice this. But like, for instance, you might take up, for instance, the vow to not drink alcohol, and your friends still drink alcohol. And Christmas comes, everybody has a glass of champagne or something, you go like, no, I'm sorry, I've given that up. Or perhaps you stop gossiping, and you might say to them, no, I don't want to talk about those things. Sometimes what can happen is the people you used to call friends don't like you. So you start to lose people that you had this type of friendship with.
Or also, if things are going well, people do get envious.
Yeah, that's true.
If you have a respite from suffering for a while, people like, how very dare you.
And in fact, this line, I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others, is a major line. For instance, a text called the other thought transformation practice called 7 Points for Training the Mind. That's where that came from. The 7 Points for Training the Mind is a commentary to this practice, 8 verses for training the mind. We're really talking about cultivating patience. So in an introduction to Buddhism, His Holiness says, according to worldly norms of human behavior, when we help someone and then place great trust in them, and then they mistreat us in return, it is seen as reasonable to be upset.
Just in normal life.
Yeah, normal life. What is it? And I mean, that's what normally happens, isn't it? You help somebody out and they appreciate it at the time, but then later on, perhaps you go back to ask for help yourself, and it's like, nah. It seems like unfair, isn't it? It's like, but I helped you. Yeah. I mean, this happens to us, doesn't it? So, of course, we get upset. His Holiness says, like, if you're trying to train in this mind of enlightenment, if you're trying to develop it or cultivate it, then you cannot give in to this conventional way of thinking, this ordinary way of behavior. Because instead, we have to learn to see such people in a special way. And the special way is these people are objects for our practice of forbearance and love and kindness. This is, in fact, let us recognize these people as our spiritual teachers. So let me put up the verse and we can talk a bit more about it. As you can see, it says, when someone whom I have helped, or in whom I have placed great hopes, mistreats me in extremely hurtful ways, I will train myself to regard that person as my precious teacher. in here, in this book here, when someone whom I have befriended and in whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. So this is basically what we'll be talking about today, and do a few meditations about it. So again, from His Holiness, he says, after helping someone, so this is from Approaching the Buddhist Path, and it's on page 165. He says, after helping someone, we usually expect at least a thank you in return, if not their help later on. Especially when we are close to someone, we tend to expect a lot from them. When, instead of responding to us in the way we would like, the other person is inconsiderate or inflicts harm, we often react with hurt and anger. This is often the case that the closer the person is, the quicker it is to flash back at them. Our sense of disappointment and betrayal is often so deep that we may ruminate on the situation for a very long time and plan some form of retaliation, wanting that person to hurt as much as we do. Of course, it's a terrible thing to do if you're in a relationship, right? It just destroys everything. Such thinking can be all-consuming as we alternate between feeling sorry for ourselves and indignant towards the other person. However, taking revenge does not eliminate our pain. It only masks it temporarily by giving us a false sense of power. The only way to free ourselves from pain and anger is through forgiveness. So we'll talk about forgiveness very shortly, what that means.
Anne says, it's so true with friends not understanding the commitments and changes that we make. Sometimes people make a joke about it or mock me, but a bit of a shock the first time, but easier to accept after that. And the 8 verses are very helpful for that acceptance.
Oh, that's wonderful, Anne. Good to hear. So what is, so we know we've heard of this term samsara. What are some of the characteristics or qualities of samsara?
Everything's out of control.
Yeah, there's a lack of control, isn't it?
Unreliable.
Unreliable.
Temporary.
It is unreliable. Temporary. What else?
It's contaminated by our own
Afflictions.
affliction.
Yeah. So it's often said is actually suffering, isn't it?
Yeah.
True suffering. Samsara is like true suffering. So one of the things of these true sufferings is like samsara, there's no certainty. So this is the thing to remember, because this is exactly what happens. You would think and be certain that somebody would appreciate our help and kindness when they needed it. That doesn't happen. No, sometimes it doesn't happen. People just forget, or something has happened to them where they feel that they can't repay your kindness, and perhaps out of embarrassment or something else, their response is pretty poor. So instead of explaining. In fact, one of the examples I read was a story of a fellow who's got a good friend. So Ian's my friend, right? And I've helped Ian in the past. And now I see there's this job up, and I have a son, and I think Ian could help me. He's right there. He knows about this sort of work. He knows the people. I'll ask Ian for help. So I go down and I see Ian. I tell him, look, my son, there's this opening at this place where you can go to work. Could you give us a hand? But unbeknown to me, I didn't, Ian is actually looking for a job too. And when he sees this job, he thinks, it's just the job I want. Right? So Ian goes, yeah, okay. No problem, leave it with me. And then, like the weeks go by, but meanwhile, Ian has approached that place and actually got the job. Yeah. So in the book that I was reading, this is not uncommon, this sort of thing. You help somebody, you go to them, you ask for help in return, but the person takes your situation and turns it to their advantage. Yeah, so this is like the sort of thing of being, there's nothing certain here. The person who you call your friend doesn't behave friendly, doesn't behave in the way you expect. It's better.
It's uncertain at one level, but like from the perspective of karma, it's absolutely certain, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, because it's on them.
but I mean, every single thing that's happening is because of the karma that's been caused. You know what I mean? Like it's uncertain from our perspective because we don't know how karma works. But from a karma perspective, everything's absolutely certain. There's no result without a cause, like conditions.
Yeah, that's right. But at the same time, yeah, so that is certain.
Yeah.
That a negative action will end up with a negative result. But that is certain. Yeah. But it's not really certain whether Ian will go along in this example, take the job.
Yeah.
That's not certain. But in this case, like he did.
I have an example that I lived with for many, many years, in that my brothers have only ever called me on the telephone maybe twice in 40 years.
Oh,
If I want to talk to them, I've got to call them.
yeah.
And I've never let it become a problem.
Yeah, of course. That's right. I know what to do that.
My brother was the same.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is that a call when they want something?
Yeah.
When I'm in the hospital,
Oh, yeah.
but normally.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're talking about like 30, 40.
They get really slack.
So again, in terms of this verse, there was someone whom I have helped, or in whom I've placed great hopes, mistreats me extremely hurtful ways. I'll train myself to regard him as my precious tutor. So here it says, so this experience shows us that there is no certainty in samsara. Everything changes. Friends become enemies and enemies become friends. So why is this? Because in samsara, everyone is controlled by their delusions and no one has any freedom. So this is just two things you said, right? This situation is encouraging me to abandon samsaric rebirth. So instead of getting angry or discouraged, I must abandon samsaric rebirth and generate the joyful mind of renunciation, a sincere wish to attain the permanent inner peace of liberation. So,
Wouldn't want to sit here, right?
Yes. Yeah, roadworks.
I love the sound of roadworks in the morning.
so
Can I ask how are they my teacher? Like
Yeah.
I regard them as my teacher, but how?
okay, so we'll come to that. So here we this one here. So as my, you mean how to do it
Yeah,
or why to do it?
how?
How to do it. Okay. So here's the first, let's do the first part first and we'll come to that next, right? So when somebody does this to us, right, we've helped them and now instead of helping us, they hurt us or break our trust in them, you all understand that. We know from our understanding of karmic cause and effect, if we point out there and go, like, they're to blame for the way I feel. They did this and it really hurt me. And they did it. When we talk like point out finger that we're actually saying here, this person, they're the substantial cause. It's not just condition here or they're a cause, a contributory cause. No, they're the main cause. Now that's the mistake. So you go, okay, so they're not the main cause. They contributed, is what they did. They're not the main cause. So if we look for the main cause, then the main cause comes back to our own previous karma. Right? It's ripened. We had the seed, we had the potential in our mind stream. I went out there, I explained to Ben or Ian what I required of them. They double-crossed me, and now I'm really upset. So they contributed. Just like if you're saying here, like, oh, I don't want to stay at tomorrow morning with this roadworks. You guys, it's all going to be terrible because no, roadworks. So that can't be the substantial cause, right? The roadworks cannot be the substantial cause, because if it were, we should all be upset, or we should all feel like missing.
I'm missing watching them.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Technically like industrial.
I do like industrial things, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that would be.
Yeah, so this is what.
When it comes to the sound of birds or cicadas, like, oh no.
Yes, Ben?
So the internal mental cause for that suffering, is it because people help me before and I haven't done them a favour, and then I'm just getting that back, where I've got them made up with me? Is that the cause?
So to say that's what I'm interested.
So if I help someone and they don't get me back,
Yeah,
I suffer because of that.
yeah.
Is that because I've got a cause of love in my mind where other people helped me in the past and I didn't help them back?
That's something very similar to
Just
that.
getting that straight back at me.
Yeah. So again, like with this is really important, right? This is the sort of the backbone of all the Buddhist teachings. So when we take refuge, for instance, we become a Buddhist, right? What's the essential meaning of refuge? You go to follow Buddhist teachings of karma, cause and effect. If you take refuge and become a Buddha, that's what you do. So the first thing that you work out is, well, what causes my suffering? The thing to always know is like, it's never anything external to you. Never, ever. That's not the major cause. Because just like, and you go, well, how do I know that? You go, well, a simple example. The time we listen to roadworks? And I said, oh man, I hate roadworks. No, I love it. So that cannot be a substantial cause, because that substantial always produces the same result.
With everybody.
With everybody. It's like, if you have a seed of barley, it always produces barley. It never does rice or cherries or anything else. It's just barley. And that's always the case. So you can see this is not the case here, is it? Some of us are happy, some of us are not. So then it can't be substantial. It's contributory. So you go, okay, so where's the substantial cause then? You go, it's got to be us. It's got to be somewhere within this continuum of body and mind. It's on my side, not on that other side.
Even Harley Davidson drivers.
Mm.
Even that.
So this is what you sort of got to get into.
So is it because of the sense of dissatisfaction and unhappiness in my mind that is triggered by one of those things?
Yeah, you could say that. That's right. Yeah.
And is it because we're also taking refuge in the person to give us happiness, that we're sort of thinking, I'm disappointed because, I expected a nice positive outcome. And so I'm taking refuge in the wrong thing. I should be just taking refuge in, as you said before, the Buddhas and the karma, cause and effect. No, I'm rambling.
No, I think you're saying like we're attached to an outcome.
Yeah.
The doesn't come.
Yeah, we're attached to the outcome and the outcome. Yeah, thanks.
That's
delusion.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a lot about this in this verse, about what they call projection and hallucination. You're projecting your outcomes onto someone else and then expecting that outcome. And it doesn't come, so of course you're disappointed, you get upset. But like I said, this major thing is to become clear about what's the major source of the problem? Like, where is it? So the thing, it's not out there. It's not out there. That's what you've got to realise. Okay, if it's not out there, there's got to be somewhere in here. This continuum of the person, mind and body. So now when you go to that, you go, okay, that's the first stage. Now this is where you can go wrong again. And the next part is go, so the causes, like you did something in the past or some other life or way back in the past of this life. That's the cause of the suffering. Yeah? So when you hear that, the natural thing is to go blame yourself. Right? It was me, I did it, it's you. Even the text will say, no, it's your fault. Yeah? So when that happens, of course, then what happens? You usually feel,
Beat yourself up.
yeah, that's right. You feel really bad about yourself. Yeah? And again, so now you're going, well, what is self? Who is the person? So now you got a new little experiment to go on there. Who is this me? Because there is no, like I say, there's no, like it wasn't Ian from 10 lifetimes ago that did the wrong thing. Right? He hurt somebody. He did something very similar to what happened to him today. That's not the person. So you've got to be clear here. Who is this person called me that did the wrong thing in the past? It was in some other life.
So Ian could have been Isabel.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been Ian. It wouldn't be the person called Ian. Right? It would have been Isabel. That's right. And then it got carried on to so many other persons. Yeah? And they could have also experienced parts of it and this and that. And now along comes this person called Ian, and a similar thing happens to him. He puts his trust in somebody, his trust is betrayed, and he's hurt. And this is say like what you did. But the you they're referring to is not the Ian of this life, or the you of this life. Right? Don't ever think that. That'll be a mistake. Unless the negativity was so heavy and it was done in this life. So here it says, so he said, look, we should think that we ourselves are to blame for whatever befalls us. So again, like you just hear that, you think, oh, that's me of this life, right? I, of this life, did something, some other life.
Before I was me.
Before I was me, that's right. And now I'm me, now I cop it. So that's mistaken, that's wrong. Yeah, well, that's right. That's what we're doing there, Gary. That's right. We're misapprehending ourselves. We've made a mistake. And this is an easy mistake to make.
Especially because in the text, it's like a shorthand
Yeah.
that it expects you to know the specific definition of you or I.
Yeah. We should think that we ourselves are to blame for whatever befalls us. And in this manner, by maintaining a warm heart, we remain happy. And because we do not transfer the blame to others, they too remain happy. So that's a certainty. But then we go, well, how can I be happy about what's going on here? We should reflect, as Ben pointed out, this is due to my own karma. It is established that no one harms the noble ones who have eliminated their negative karma. And even from the other's perspective, it is our own negative karma that causes them to injure us. So this is, okay, so as Ben pointed out, you said, Ben, there's this certain relationship, right? Between if you experience suffering, the cause has got to be related to the suffering. Right? If you experience happiness, the cause must be a virtuous cause related to happiness. It's never a virtuous cause producing suffering or a non-virtuous cause producing happiness. It is never that way, just like it's never a rice seed producing plums. It is never that way. It's 1 to 1. So when this situation like this happens, we've helped someone, they've hurt us. What? So now they hurt us. So what's the result of that? What happens when someone hurts us like that?
Get upset.
Well, it's one thing that could happen. We could get upset. The other thing is that we might not get upset. Right?
They also get karmic imprint.
That's right. Now they have produced suffering. And you're partly responsible for it.
For getting up their nose.
Yeah, and you've acted as a secondary, like, the supporting condition, just like we are the supporting conditions for others and so forth. Yeah. So now just our presence, they've behaved badly and now they're in trouble. Yeah. And this is like, this is what's going on in Gaza, isn't it? Yeah, it's called tit for tat. Like, you hurt me, well, I hurt you back. I hurt you back, I hurt you back. And this is our history of humankind, isn't it? So there's no ending to that. So when the other hurts us, and like we get hurt, right? We just, okay, we're hurt. The first thing is like, don't retaliate. This is because you harmed them in the past. Or someone just like them. And that's why you feel hurt now. You got the cause on your mental stream. You feel hurt. So then we don't acknowledge that. Okay, the causes, the real substantial causes here. That's why I'm hurt. But I also know that if I retaliate with harm, I kick it off again. It's like now I put another cause on my mind stream to be hurt.
And that is a tragedy.
That's real, it's really tragic, isn't it? Like, you try to escape from harm, and as I say in the text, you go and cause it again. And they often say in the text, although we want happiness, we rush towards its opposite. Anything that will cause us suffering. So, we've been hurt, we don't like it, we want to be happy. What do? Hurt them back. Thinking we'll be better off, we'll be happy. It's good. It's not. We just set ourselves up to have it happen again. And just like the person who hurt us, they've set themselves up now to be hurt again. It's a real tragedy. It's not even tragedy funny, is it? Not even, comically tragic. And so there's that great part of in the text, as you probably know, where he said, although they wish for happiness, they rush towards the cause of suffering. Although they wish to be free from suffering, but they rush towards its causes. Although they wish to be happy, they rush to the opposite.
So Ben online asked, karmically, what does it mean when someone hurts you and you wish to retaliate, but you don't actually do it?
Okay, so what it means is you don't have the full karma there to experience the rebirth in a lower realm, Ben.
So it's not a full karma.
That's not a full karma. Yeah.
So should we be striving to not get hurt, not feel hurt?
Yeah, and there's a way to do that, but that requires wisdom realizing emptiness, which is very, as we all know, not an easy thing to do. So the other thing you can do is just use method and go, okay, so now I am hurt. Like, how should I look at this hurt? And go, well, that's the end of that karma. Thank goodness. But that's what an end, like it doesn't have to get worse. Ben.
There's an expression, hurt people. Like,
Yeah.
The thing is, when I'm not feeling hurt, I don't really want to go, don't feel control of hurt other people.
No, that's right.
When I'm feeling hurt, I'm so angry. So it's sort of like, I don't know, it just seems kind of unfair or something. It's like, Like, if you're feeling happy, you don't hurt people, but like, you never really get hurt, and that's when you feel like.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, isn't it, with samsara, you don't have control over your mind. Yeah, when you feel happy, you don't feel like hurting people, but that happiness can vanish like that, and then you do want to hurt them.
Yeah.
Very, very quickly. Yeah, so again, this is this problem with, samsara, things can just change in an instant. So now we've got this thing, so we go, okay, so now I have not responded to their harm. I've been hurt, I acknowledge it, but you go like, this is like, fair in the sense that I have hurt others, just like this person is hurting me now. Now it comes back. It's like, I often think of it like a boomerang. You chuck something out there and it lands on your own head. It comes back at you and hits you. So, fair whack. You threw it out there. Now come land on your head. What do you expect?
Aussie Dharma.
Yeah. You know what? You might have seen those things where they have I think like dominoes, and they set them all up, and then you press one, they fall on the other, like that. And have you seen that picture where this bloke, he pushes one down, and it's a really small one, but it pushes down a slightly bigger, and it pushes a slightly bigger, and a slightly bigger, and it's going around, and he can't see that bigger things are happening. And he's sitting there, unbeknownst to him, it's going to come around. There's a monstrous thing here, it's going to fall on him. That's how karma works. So when it falls on you, you have to go, that's because I pushed this thing down. I mean, it's no good jumping up and down. Well, you could, of course, on the domino. You're really upset on the thing that fell on us and go, you blah, blah, blah. I mean, people do, don't they? Yeah. But here we go, no, okay, no, don't do that. So we go, okay, I'm going to hold back and accept that this is a natural response, this is a natural karmic response. I have the cause, I get the effect. When I don't behave badly in response to this effect, that's the end of it.
So people do that, like if they've had terrible childhoods, go, well, at least I'm not going to pass that on to my kids, and actually break that chain.
That's right. Yeah, and that's what we've got to do. You've got to break the karmic chain. The karmic chain carries on when you hurt back. They hurt back, and it goes on and on and on. Okay. So from our side, when we don't create or keep the chain going, we go, okay, that's good for us. What about the other person?
They'll just go do it to somebody else.
Yeah, that's right. Because this karma, right, the habit. This is the natural, you look at Gaza, what's going on, this habit. I'm just responding with harm, with harm, harm, with harm. And oftentimes you'll see one of the major things when you, at least when you get ordained, that's one of the first things you can't do. You cannot respond to harm with harm. That's the rule. You don't do it. Ben?
I was just thinking about when you're framing it, like, what about the karma the other person's creating for themselves?
Yeah.
You're exhausted, but they just.
That's right.
I'm assuming that sort of leads me to think, well, I've got to be a Buddha with omniscience to be able to help them because they can't help them now.
Well, the thing is, the first being is like so instead of having anger towards them, we have compassion. We see, God, they're trying to be happy by hurting me. Like they've done something completely out of whack, out of reality. Right? It's like I see, trying to be happy, but you do all the things that destroy your happiness. That's what they just did.
What can we literally do about things like their own karma occurring? We can't really do much about it in our present state, can we?
Well, one of the things you could do is like, for instance, if you know that each time they see you, they get really upset, make sure you're not seen by them. Right? So you can stop that part. Yeah, that's right. Respect. That's right. Yeah. So you think, because of me, this person will have to go to the lower realms. I'm to blame for this. So this is the thing. We don't feel. It's not a thing of feeling really bad. I'm so bad. That's no good. It has to go like compassion. this person's hurt themselves because of me. What can I do for them?
So if we naturally come to that thought, then we're developing a sense of compassion.
Yeah. So oftentimes when if you find yourself in an argument, one of the best ways to stop an argument is just to go, I'm sorry. You take the blame, don't you? You go, okay, like this is going nowhere. I actually like this person, but we're just having a complete meltdown and disagreement here. One of you has to say sorry. So that's what you're sort of doing, right? You've got to stop it somehow. So from our side, because we know, right? So this thing, it's not, like I said, it's just for us, it's also for the other person. We have relationships. We have to stop the hurt. And if just to say sorry doesn't, say it. Or if you ask, can we start again? Yeah, okay, that's right. Let's just start again, right? We just put that aside, let's start again.
And what I find here too, saying sorry doesn't harm
No, it doesn't.
you. There's no harm to
It's
you.
no harm at all. Yeah.
Time to cry.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it's how to make friends and influence people. This is one of the things that Carnegie says, like, be the first to apologize. And when I read that book, that was a huge thing for me. Because I was thinking, never apologize, never ever admit you're wrong. Right? But then I saw what happened.
I know people see apologising for weakness.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I thought it was. And so I read that book, and it was, the life me told me, going, oh my God, I've got to be the first to say sorry from now on, and gee, work the treat. Okay, so now, here we come to the next bit, you see? So it says, so I'll train myself to regard him as my precious teacher. So this means our spiritual teachers are the embodiments of great kindness, for they bestow on us the vows, they provide us with the methods of meditative practice, and they reveal to us the path to liberation. Of course, if we fail to contemplate this and fail to guard the contemplations, we don't tread the path. So reflect, you need to think. What this being has given me helps purify my negative karma. That's right, isn't it? That's what we said, right? They do this to you. It comes up and you don't fight back, it comes purified. It would never have happened if this person hadn't done what they did. This person, therefore, has benefited me. So I should see them as my spiritual teacher, no different from the one who has conferred on me the oral transmissions and so forth. Let's do a short meditation then. So please just, just get comfortable in your seat. You can close your eyes if you like. Just a brief contemplation. So breathe in through your nostrils and then breathe through the mouth and let everything settle and the body breathe itself. Just think about this. The only reason people harm you is because you have created the cause for them to do so through your previous negative actions. These people are teaching you about the law of karma. By deceiving you and repaying your help with harm, they are reminding you that in the past you deceived and harmed others. They are betraying you only because you betrayed them or others in previous lives. This person is encouraging you to purify your negative karma and to refrain from harmful actions in the future. How kind they are. They must be a spiritual guide. emanated from the Buddha Amitabha. The Buddha is encouraging you to purify your negative karma and to refrain from harmful actions in the future. How kind. Okay. Breathing in through your nostrils. Exhale. So I think that for people like ourselves, you know, I've been doing this now nearly for nearly 30 years. I really still consider myself a beginner. I actually know I'm still a beginner. And so, I figure you guys are all beginners too. Right? It takes quite a long time to, like, first of all, you've got to accumulate the knowledge. You know, you've got to get used to all these different terms and so forth and what they mean and so forth. And then, and as you know, it's huge, Buddha Dharma, isn't it? But then you've got to grab all the pieces together and sort of fit it together and work with them. And it's so easy to be unable to do that because you forget. There's so much, there's parts here, parts there, parts there, and you forget the parts, and so you can't put them together.
What book did that quote come from just before the meditation?
Oh, I don't know.
What's the book that you're reading from?
This is Approaching the Buddhist Path. Yeah.
Thanks.
Especially in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
When it's this bang automatic pilot kicks in and you go, rah.
Yeah, and that really, again, it just shows us that, you know, we either don't know how to meditate or we haven't meditated. We haven't habituated ourselves to this new way of thinking. So I read the other day a great thing about meditation. And so he asked us, like, so what's meditation? What do you think it is? Yeah. And I got things like, in my own line of it, well, it's becoming familiar with the topic. It's cultivating a new mental property or something, cultivating the way of behaving. That was my first two. You know? And I stopped there, and he went, meditation is just habituation. It's habit forming. It's just a way of forming a new habit. That's what you're doing. And that made a breakthrough. Oh man, that's great, because I understand about what it means to create a habit. You just do something again and again. That's how you create habits, isn't it? And then if you look at meditation, when you first start off, you know, so you've got your object, you know, your mind wanders from the object. What's the habit you're trying to create? To bring it back. That's all you've got to do. You go, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. That's the habit you're trying to cultivate. That's called meditation. So just as you said, Bev, right, so easy to forget. Well, you won't if you've been having that as your focus and brought away and come back and come back and come back and come back. Right? And this is, you've habituated yourself to this way of thinking. So that when the person like does harm you, like you know, you might still have this natural thing to go, but because you've had the habit of coming back, yeah, no. I don't have to let my mouth open up here and say something nasty back or leap up and threaten them or something like that, right?
So that means one day then you can trust yourself
to
be with other sentient beings.
Yeah, but I mean, we all have habits. If you ask yourself, well, how did you get them? What did you do? Yes, I did the same thing. I did it again and again. So that's what meditation is. And bad habits are like that too, aren't they? You know, you think something, you do something, do it again and again, and suddenly you like it. Right? But as we've found here, you might like things that aren't good for you. In fact, they could hurt you badly, destroy you, in fact. And so this is the idea now we're working out. So what are the causes of happiness? That's what I've got to habituate myself to. What are the causes of suffering? I've got to habituate myself to let them go. Don't go there. Just let it go. You know, come back to what you know is correct. So what of course is so upsetting is that when we do something good for someone else, so we have this expectation of our kindness being returned, when it's not, our trust in them is betrayed. But that nearly always hurts, right? That yeah, or people get upset about things like that, right? So again, from approaching the Buddhist path, as Holiness says, also helpful when we feel pained due to the betrayal of trust is to reflect that in the past we have behaved in such ways towards others. Now, I know myself, I certainly have. I look back at things and things happen to me, like I'm so grateful to understand about karma, cause and effect. Because my other method before was like, you know, if I robbed somebody and then my own house got robbed, you know, you just go, for me at least, it's like, well, fair whack. You know, you're taking off somebody else, now someone takes off you. Nothing to be get too upset about. You know? Same as, I mean, this time in the bank, you know, finding this pair of sunglasses there. And so I picked them up, give them. You know? And then one day, so then later on, a few years have gone by, I bought a pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses, like nearly $400. Yeah? And, you know, so I'm off at the beach, sitting there, I take them off, I'm under the tree, I put them down there. Something happens, I get up and I walk away, and I walk around and suddenly I remember, wow, my sunnies, bolt back, they're gone. Huh? And I remembered the time I found them in the bank. And I didn't get upset. I just went, wow, you took sunnies from the bank, remember? Now somebody's taken yours. Isn't that fair? And I have to say, yeah, you know. So, yeah, so that way I was able to not be upset. If I knew if I'd robbed somebody and they robbed me, I'd feel like that's how it works. But also lots of other people, similar things that I was doing, it wasn't fair whack to them. They got very upset when somebody would do to them what they did to others. I could never sort of understand that. I sort of distanced myself from people like that. I think that's really unreasonable. That's not logical at all. You know, if you're going to do this stuff, you've got to expect it to come back at you. And when it does, you have to wear it. At least that's my way of looking at things. It's not everybody's, but it's mine. So he says here, in the past, we have behaved in such ways towards others. Although it is unpleasant to admit to ourselves, it is true that we have not always been exemplars when it comes to treating others fairly or keeping our promises and commitments. Since we have acted in hurtful ways to others, why are we surprised, incensed, or devastated when such behavior is done to us? It is wiser to accept the situation, forgive the other person, and work on making ourselves more reliable and trustworthy in the future so that we avoid creating the karmic cause to receive such treatment ourselves. Now, forgiveness does not mean we condone the other person's action. It simply means that we are tired of being hurt and angry. And we are releasing those emotions because they make us feel miserable. To do this, we practice seeing the other person as our teacher of fortitude.
And calm.
Yeah, teacher of karma, fortitude. Yeah. He is like a rare gem. Because people who give us the opportunity to practice fortitude and forgiveness are rare. Think of all the people that you know. How many of them have hurt you? How many of them have you had to forgive? Probably not that many. People, the hundreds of people you know. So it is. I mean, we are hurt as we grow up. Our trust is betrayed. But if you remember what that feels like, right? Like it's not a pleasant feeling, is it, right? And then as the years go by, like when it used to happen to me, I never forget them. Right? I go, right, one day, mate, I'm going to get you back. Right? That was my take on it. Right? But then it's really unpleasant to hold that thing for years and years. You know, and then this is happening. Like, I've seen it like 20 years later, like straight away, it's back to that day that happened. It's like, right now, like he knows, I know. It's like paranoia time, right? It's not worth it, is it? You know, it's not worth it. So it's like I said, it's rare. Like, just think of all the people you know, like, and your teacher isn't going to hurt you. Or most don't. You know, the vast majority don't. Maybe you get 0.5% or something. There are funny teachers that do disreputable things. That's true. But the vast majority of them don't. So your teacher can't teach you fortitude. No matter how much you love your teacher and respect them, they're not the teachers of fortitude. They're not the teachers of patience. So this is the idea of going, this is this special teacher. The special teacher, the special guru. This guru teaches me fortitude. They're rare. And so then it's even more respect, right?
They still at the same time might be a pretty nasty.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. And in all their nastiness, they're creating more and more suffering for themselves. Yeah, it's true. That's
You're not going to be friendly, like.
no, you don't need to be well, you could, but again, this requires like training, right? You'll have to sort of think it through. This is not something you want to like push. It should be like reasonable.
This is helping us develop this attitude that, so rather than when this situation comes up, rather than reacting with this angry retaliation, if we can at least circumvent that and cut it out. And then even if we don't necessarily have to be their bosom buddies, but at least we're not harming them. And using skillful ways to remedy the situation, if we can have a mediation process to resolve it, win-win, that would be good, but we can't necessarily expect that they'll want to play along. But just do things to try and improve it, and if it doesn't work, and then just remove yourself if it's not going to work. Well,
because here is that because we're trying to develop a mind of enlightenment, right? And we need, the path to enlightenment requires a lot of patience. Right? And like I said, your teacher, the normal teacher you have all the respect for, doesn't teach you that.
It's a difficult situation in real life because if you're putting great hopes in someone, it's just not an ordinary person. But this is talking about someone that's special to you.
Yeah.
And when they betray you, as you say, you think if we do something really good to someone, they will never betray us.
Yeah, but that's not the case.
They do, it's really big deal.
Yeah, yeah. And so then this is what's so important to it's like you ask yourself, well, what can we learn? What's the person teaching me? Yeah. So self-reliance, karmic cause and effect,
we
compassion, all sorts of things here. Patience.
From the situation without having to then go back to the situation and do it all again. Like, you know, the whole thing happened. But, you know, like Emma said, it might be a dangerous situation to be in. So we don't have to go back there.
No, not at all. But we can go, okay, so in a dangerous situation, this person taught me something.
Yeah, go on, do something.
Yeah, that's right. That's the major thing, right? Like what they're teaching is like this idea about karmic cause and effect. We've got to behave differently. If you don't like what happened to you, you're going to have to change your behavior. Because this hurt that we felt, that's on us. Well, it's because we've hurt others. This person just helped, like right, just in this discomfort we're feeling right now. So that puts it down. And the lovely thing is also that you don't look at them anymore as like you hate them, that you think that they're just untrustworthy, all these things. You go, teacher, this is what I'm being shown. Because it is the case, I know this myself. Those hard lessons that you get taught through life, you don't forget them. And that needs someone to teach you that. So I can remember, oh, this thing happened with this person I was with, and this is what I learned from it. So as you're saying, but one of the things I learned was this, I used to hang around a lot of peculiar people, and of course I got into trouble with them. And what always used to get me upset was like I didn't do it. They did it. And I was sort of going like, geez, these guys are like stupid. Also, what if you can be so stupid to call the heat on us like this, right? And then my mate says to me, when you fly with the crows, you get shot with them. And I just went, oh, right.
They actually
Yeah,
are
so
stupid.
Yeah, but so am I. Right? I'm really stupid too. And then it showed me, right, you don't want to be stupid? Don't associate with those people.
So Ben's saying, is it like adopting the mindset that I'll learn and grow from all situations?
Yeah.
Even or especially the unpleasant ones?
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's one of the quotes, what was his name? Milarepa. So he said, like, I have no schooling, no study, none of those things. But what I did have was nature. And so nature became his teacher. So, as you know, like, nature can be pretty rough, right? And it doesn't care about you at all. Right? You're like insignificant in the face of nature. But he looked at us like, what can I learn? What can it show me? So he, like I said, most of his great Dharma came from that. And not only that, if you look at his relationship with Martha, boy, I know, that's the way it goes, like, after this, never again. It's, don't teach people like Martha taught Milarepa, that we'd never be able to bear it. But if you know that history, you think Martha was like, Jesus, the meanest, heaviest, nastiest sort of person there was. And yet, Milarepa was able to stay there. All the actions that Martha did purified Milarepa's karma. Take all the initiations and so forth.
They had such a special connection that it worked, that it wasn't abuse.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But like I said, the major thing here was by meeting up with Martha was able to help Milarepa purify the karma that he created by killing all those people. So now one of the other things that happens, of course, is that when others betray us, what can easily happen is that our mistrust goes to everyone. Like, I remember doing this as a kid. I was really, extreme. And so the first girl that I had a relationship with that hurt me, I went, all women are off. Chucked the blanket of mistrust over all of them. Yeah, just like, out to get me. So, of course, that's too extreme. So he says, again, this is from the Dalai Lama approaching the Buddhist path. In the future, instead of throwing a blanket of mistrust over everyone to protect ourselves from being hurt, we should slow down and evaluate which areas and to what extent people can bear trust. So this is this lovely thing here.
Very practical.
We trust the pilot of a plane who is a stranger with our life when we board the plane. But we might not trust them to do our accounting. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. We may trust a friend to speak to us honestly, but not to fix our car. One reason we experience the pain from broken trust is that we mistakenly trusted people in areas where they cannot bear trust. Or perhaps we had expectations of them that they could not fulfill or never agreed to fulfill. In the future, it is wiser to get to know others better and not have so many unverified assumptions about how they will think or act. In addition, even when people make promises, circumstances change and they are unable to keep them or no longer want to. Human beings make mistakes and change their minds. Our expectations must include space for these possibilities as well. So again, look, I fell into this whole thing, thinking that I had this idea that if you make a promise, you have to stick by it, no matter what. I don't care what happens. You say this, you do it. Because when I say it, I'm going to do it. So I thought, you have to be like me. Of course, no, they're not. So of course, you need enough disappointments to happen to you. And so, so my response, if you didn't keep your word to me when you'd given it, you're off. I've nothing more to do with you.
But if you do keep your promises, I'm showing you very positive karma by doing that. If you make a promise and you keep it,
Yeah.
from your own side, you actually, that's virtuous. Like,
Yeah, sure.
Depends what you're promising to do.
oh,
Yeah,
it's-
Yeah.
That's right.
Start.
Yeah. So I have these ideas. That's all they were.
It's expectations.
Expectations, yeah, and they weren't met, and so I shut the people out of my life. Until one time, one of the people I shut out of my life actually confronted me about it, and said, blah blah blah, when you did this, like, why did you do that? So I told her, and then she told me like why she behaved like she did, and it was like just like it says here, like she was really unwell on that day. She had a really bad day. And so she behaved in a way that I would not accept. But when she told me that she was unwell and behaved that way, I could understand, I said, of course. And then it was like this huge thing for me going, oh my God, like all these expectations I've had of people, and making promises. It's like, no, you can't break your promise. But they do. Suddenly gave me this thing like, people break promises. Sometimes you can't keep them. Things change. You just can't do it. You can't blame them for that. But I used to. And so these were great ways where, this sort of thing, I sort of worked out to myself, but reading now in the Dharma, you go, oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness I dropped that way of thinking and have adopted one that's more in line with reality.
I was just thinking that one of the hardest ones to drop is the expectation of fellow Dharma students.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you kind of think you're all on the same page, and then when Dharma students go and do really undharmic things, it's a real shock.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so again, so this is this. So when that happens, which you'll see this happen, right? You sort of watch what your thinking is. So it's not going to help for you to criticize that other person. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help them. So you've got to sort of look at it in a more holistic way. Or if you're going to criticize, it should be like helpful criticism, not put down criticism. You got to sort of take this thing of, like, well, he or she is not enlightened, or if they are, they're teaching me something. Right? It has to be. So are they teaching me something? Like, what is that? Miffy. Oh, okay, 5 minutes, sure. So in summary, this verse is about like voluntary endurance. It's about that enduring these types of behaviors that others do. We've done good, they respond poorly to us. We have to be able to endure that. One of the simplest ways of enduring it is making it a lesson for yourself. This is the teaching, this is the lesson. How does this work? So when I was going through this today, so I remember this thing about myself, I would be really unsuitable for the army. Because, they tell you what to do, right? Well, I'm not going to have it. It's just like, I'm like it. If you yell at me, like, well, it's odd. You know, that's what I sort of think, you know. I say, no, you're attacking me. You know? So today I'm thinking about that, right? Yeah, I thought, yeah, I know what I'm like, right? I can't bear that sort of thing. But I thought, you know, like if they explained to me beforehand why they were doing what they were doing, and I understood it, like, oh, I get it. Okay, fine. But see, I misunderstand. I think something that is not a teaching. They're teaching me how to survive in a war. A war comes by, you need to be strong, you do all these things, got to do all the stuff, and you got a chance of survival. But if you keep up the way you are, you're not going to last out there. But like I said, for me, I need that explained to me clearly, right? And I can then I'll bear it. I go, okay, I get it. You're actually not trying to hurt me. You're not, you know, you're trying to help me. So this is the same thing. So when the other person, you know, betrays your trust, they're trying to help you.
Because you actually get more realistic. If you take out the kind of cynical, kind of knee-jerk reaction, you get just more in touch with reality.
Yeah. So it's a much better way of looking at, you know, like if you look at this, like, what are you learning? You should be trying to think, I'm learning something what not to do, and I learned something to do. Just like you were saying before, like myself too, I look at how my parents brought me up, I go, never going to be like my dad. That's the lesson I'm taking from my family life. And on the flip side, you go, okay, you have to be something different than your dad. Then when I find out why my dad behaved like he did, you go, oh, okay, like he's not a monster. Like, you know, you look at the history of these people, you go, they've been hurt. They don't have any dharma like we do. Of course they're going to behave the way they do. That's sort of natural in a way. So there's this idea of like voluntarily enduring the suffering because you understand you actually created the cause for it yourself. That's what's happening to you. You can suck it up. You can take it. You know? This like really challenges your own impatience towards this, right? Because like I said, when you're impatient, you blame the other person, you know, you're the cause of it, blah, blah, blah. So you challenge impatience and you cultivate the forbearance. And this is related to the exchange of attitude. So just like we don't like to be hurt when somebody betrays our trust, the other person doesn't like to be hurt either. So if you put yourself in their footsteps and you sit over there, it's just like, you know, back off. The attitude you have is the same that they have. They don't want to be hurt. And of course, in terms of the perfections, it's related to this perfection of patience. And there's a Dharma text from Lama Atisha called Songs of Blissfulness. And in it says, whether someone is foe or friend, these objects that give rise to afflictions, the person who sees them as spiritual teachers will be joyful wherever they reside. And again, I had a funny thing when I was sort of much younger, when I was learning to gamble. So I made this bet, and of course, we got lost, you know. And I was like, it was so close, and I was spewing, you know. And I remember walking from the kitchen to this other room. I had to go through the doorway. And as I was going through the doorway, really upset, by the time I got through, I was really happy because I saw that the loss was a gain. Like I learned something from this loss, which I nearly missed because I was so upset. Right? And it was just, oh man, isn't that amazing? That these things you think are bad, actually, if you look at it in this particular light, you can see some good in it. So that was really shocking, you know, but I never forgot it, of course. It's fucking
That's what
sure,
doesn't kill me makes me stronger, neater.
yeah, all this sort of thing, like, you know, somebody doing this to you, you see them as the teacher. It's like, you know, it's like, wow, was that person doing it? I would never have been reminded or had this karma purified. It was because of them. They did this.
So you gave up gambling?
No. I just gave up that type of bet.
The gambling could fall away
That's right, yeah, it did. The gambling did fall away after, yeah, not too much longer after that. It wasn't because I lost, it was just like too much time spent doing it, you know. So, any questions from online or in here before we do this last meditation? Okay, let's do this final meditation then. Okay, just get comfortable in your chair. You take a deep breath. Fill your lungs with air and then release it. Now consider the nature of trust and betrayal. Now imagine you have a garden and you've tended it with a lot of care. But you come home and all the flowers in the garden have been trampled. Now your first instinct might be anger. Could you just pause and just look a little deeper? What can this destroyed garden teach you? So in life, we often face situations where our kindness seems unrewarded or even met with harm. Yet these moments are not failures, but opportunities for growth. Here is the soil in which our compassion can take root and flourish. So consider those who have hurt you not as enemies, but as teachers of patience and understanding. So just as an iron sword, a steel sword is tempered in fire, the spirit grows stronger through challenge. So when faced with betrayal, resist the urge to retaliate. Instead, pause and examine your own past actions. Have you ever unknowingly caused similar pain to others? So forgiveness is not about condoning harmful actions, but about freeing yourself from the burden of anger. It's a gift you give yourself. So forgiveness allows your heart to remain open and warm. Now taking a little deeper breath, exhale and imagine releasing any resentment you might hold. Then do it again. All anger dissipates with each exhalation. And in its absence, compassion grows. Now, trust is not an all or nothing event. It's like watering different flowers within the garden with varying needs. We need to learn to adjust our trust appropriately in different relationships and situations. In the face of difficulty, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this help me grow in wisdom and kindness? And what can I learn from this? Now breathing in deeply through your nostrils. Exhale, let your eyes open, and just carry this understanding with you. This is the end of verse 6. And so the idea is that we know that we can voluntarily accept difficulties. And it really helps us to do this just by understanding how karma works. Yeah. And this verse is primarily about patience, or what they call forbearance, being able to bear harm. The final thing I'll say again for this sort of the Dalai Lama from Praise of Great Compassion, he says, verses on transforming adversity into the path are especially pointed, often giving advice that is hard to listen to when our mind is afflicted, because the advice is the opposite of our usual worldly way of thinking, feeling, and behaving. But of course, this is why the advice is the remedy. One good way to approach this is to play with the advice. That is, to imagine following it. See, this is really good because you can look back over your life, which is what I often do. I look at the way I used to behave, and I look at this new way of behaving, and I imagine doing it. And I could see like, oh, this is what would happen. Like I often think of all the people who hurt me when I was growing up, and like I can imagine saying, oh, thanks, and you're really helping me become stronger. You're really helping me develop my mind. Like if I had that attitude, like all my anger and hatred towards them and sort of revenge ideas would never have arisen. I'd be quite a different person.
Can you read out?
So here we have some material up online you can look for. Page 10, Transforming Problems. Page 17 to 28, Transforming Problems again. And pages 1 to 3, Transforming Problems by Lamas Lopu Pashe. Next week, we'll look at the giving and taking, and this is, of course, verse 7. And we're really looking at courage here, the courage to sort of change your attitude. Okay. So we've come to the end of our class. Let's dedicate our learnings and the effort and energy we've put into thinking about them. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel, bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And as long as space remains, as long as thinking beings remain, may I too remain to dispel the sorrows of the world. And in the prayer for Rinpoche's quick return, in holding and spreading the meanings, precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable and will Guru, to you I make this request. Okay, folks, thank you very much. Thank you. There's people online.
Eight people online.
You beat us.
Online one tonight.
Yes, thank you, online people. Thank you very much.
Thomas was going to be
Oh,